Welcome back to the channel. Tonight I'm going to have a conversation that I've had about 5 times in the past 2 weeks, so I figured I'd just do a video about it to tell you why I think you should start shooting a red dot now and not once you've gotten better at shooting irons. Are you ready? Stand by. So recently I've had a number of conversations, and it's the same thing every time, about how somebody is very interested in shooting red dots, but they want to get better at shooting irons before they transition. And usually in that conversation, somebody will say something like, I know it'll make me more accurate, but I'm pretty sure I won't be as fast as I am with my irons. But the reality is that shooting a dot will make you faster and more accurate, and getting really good at irons isn't necessarily going to make you a better dot shooter, but being a good dot shooter will make you better with irons. Before we go any further, I need to drop back and hit the fundamentals. So when you're shooting a slide ride optic, or any optic really, the way you do so is you look at the target, then you bring the dot onto the target where you want to hit. You don't actually look at the dot. And conversely, when you're using iron sights that are mounted on the pistol, you have to end up lining up the front sight with the rear sight, then holding it over the target with where you want to hit, creating 3 focal planes. So the fundamentals of marksmanship are the same. The trigger press is going to be same. The sight picture is kind of similar, but using a red dot completely eliminates the sight alignment portion of firing an accurate shot. You only have sight picture, then trigger press. You don't have sight alignment, sight picture, then trigger press. So if you're not seeing how that can be faster, it absolutely is faster and much easier. Not only that, but the sight picture of a dot is much cleaner and easier and less distracting because there's just less visual information floating in front of your face. When you're shooting a dot, a lot of times it's almost like the gun and your arms sort of drop out of the picture, and you just have this little glowing orb kind of moving from target to target. But I know what you're probably thinking. You're probably thinking, yeah, but for close range stuff, you're not even going to see the dot. Wrong. When you shoot a dot, you have to develop a really refined index so that the dot is basically always on the glass. Like if you look at a point, you can bring up the pistol, the dot's going to be there. So just by virtue of looking at the target and seeing what you want to hit, you're going to see the dot. And not only are you going to see it where you want it to go, you're going to see it lift in recoil, so you know whether or not you hit what you wanted to hit. Whereas with iron sights, you're going to have to pay attention to where the front sight lifts from to know where the shot went. That's called calling a shot. It's much, much easier and much simpler to watch that dot jump up out of the window and come back down than it is to notice any imperceptible sight movement. Because the dot is going to show you every little bit of muzzle movement that you have in your grips. And the dot's going to help in 2 ways. The first is you're going to be able to call shots easily by watching where the dot lifts from. And number 2 is you're going to be keenly aware of when the dot left the target. When you're shooting iron sights, a lot of times it's sort of a mystery when you're shooting groups because you think you have a perfect sight picture, pull the trigger, and then the shot's high and right by about 2 inches and you have no idea why, because you didn't see the fact that you broke your wrists up before breaking the shot. With a red dot sight, you'll watch the dot go up and then jump out of the window. Similarly, when you have a bad trigger press, you'll watch the dot go left and down, then up, and you'll know exactly what happened, that it was your trigger press that threw the shot off target. That level of vision is possible on iron sights, but you have to be really, really tuned up to see that itty bitty movement and be in tune with where your shot went. Further, by seeing the dot move around as you're breaking the shot, you become kinesthetically aware of what your hand and grip were doing, which created the condition where the dot moved off target. So you're able to fix it, because the first step to solving a problem is knowing that you have one. In iron sights, it's a lot harder to diagnose when you have a problem. And as far as bringing the dot back to iron sights, effectively you're learning how to target focus shoot, which is useful, but it's only useful if you have a really good grip and a really strong index. And there's a good chance if you put in the work to become a fluent dot shooter, you've developed a better grip and a better index. So you can actually do target focus shooting with iron-sighted guns, specifically if they're set up with fiber optic front or any other high-vis front and a blacked out rear, in which case the sights basically act like a red dot sight, although not quite as accurate. And the biggest problem with red dot sights is not battery life anymore, and it's not durability. If that's you and that's your argument, just get a Trijicon RMR Type 2. When they updated the circuit board, they're effectively bomb-proof and probably more reliable than most iron sights on the market. Now, the biggest problem with adopting a red dot is going to be putting in the practice, and that's going to be taking you out of your comfort zone. And a lot of shooters like to just kind of live in their comfort zone where they shoot between 5 and 10 yards at a square range under no pressure of time. And if that's you, that's great. Then maybe red dots aren't for you. It will take effort to develop that index. It's going to be a lot of reps in dry fire, and it's going to be some live fire to get you squared away. But once you do make that jump and learn how to shoot the red dot, you'll notice that your learning and your ability to self-diagnose and improve is going to take off. You're going to begin gaining skill at a way faster rate for the same amount of practice you were putting in with irons, and you're just going to become a better, faster shooter. So bringing it all back, when my sons get ready to shoot and I'm getting them into pistols, it's going to be on a red dot pistol and then iron sights. It's not going to be irons and then a red dot, because I really do think in 5 years we're going to think about irons on pistols a lot like we think about irons on ARs, which is they're good to have in case the dot doesn't work, but the dots generally work. I'd love to hear your thoughts. What are your thoughts on irons? If you've made the switch to carry optics with slide ride optics, what did you find is the biggest stumbling block to getting squared away? What would you recommend others do? Do you regret having gone to dots once you gain fluency? If you haven't switched to red dots, leave a comment. Let me know what's holding you back. What's your biggest concern and what are you looking for? So I appreciate you guys watching this one, and I'll catch you on the next one. Thanks, guys.